Under the waves lies a realm of unexpected dangers and extraordinary tales. In this unforgiving underwater world, 3 harrowing incidents unfold. A lobster diver's unexpected journey into the mouth of a humpback whale, a tragic honeymoon dive at a historic shipwreck shrouded in death, mystery, and controversy, and the intense, ultimate challenge faced by a competitive freediver at the world's deepest blue hole. These are the tragic tales of the deep blue sea. Lobsters weren't always rare. Long ago, they were so common in places like colonial New England that they'd just wash up on beaches. But now, lobsters are harder to find and take 7 years to grow big enough to eat, which makes them expensive and special. They are fascinating creatures living over 100 years and being able to swim backward. Their numbers have decreased due to overfishing and other human impacts. Nowadays, catching lobsters, particularly those like slipper lobsters in caves and reefs, involves scuba divers using hand nets along the ocean floor. And this is where our first real story starts. Down on the ocean bed, Michael Packard, a 56-year-old seasoned lobster diver, was just starting his day off the coast of Provincetown, Massachusetts. It was June 11th, a regular day, and Michael was ready for his second dive. The first one hadn't been great. He hadn't caught much, so he was hoping for better luck this time. The sea was alive with activity, with schools of fish swimming by. It was the perfect day for diving. At around 8 a.m., he took the plunge, heading down to about 15 meters deep, close to the sandy bottom where lobsters like to hide. But just before he could even think about catching any lobsters, something incredible happened. Michael experienced a sudden, powerful shove that felt like a truck had hit him, and then everything went completely black. For a moment, he thought a great white shark had gotten him, but there were no teeth and no sharp pains. Then it hit him. He was inside a whale's mouth, a humpback whale to be precise. In an instant, he had gone from hunter to helpless. Panic set in. Michael was fully dressed in his scuba gear, trapped in darkness, moving through the water inside the whale. He thought about his boys and his family, and he wondered if this was the end. But he didn't give up. He struggled, and the whale didn't seem to like it. The giant creature began shaking its head, and after about 30 to 40 terrifying seconds, Michael saw the light. The next thing he knew, the whale surfaced and spat him out. Back on the boat, his crew couldn't believe what they saw. Michael shot out of the water, feet first, and landed hard. They quickly pulled him on board. Everyone thought he had broken his leg, but luckily, it was just a dislocated knee and some bruises. The guys rushed him to the hospital, but Michael was a tough one. He got out the same day with nothing but a story that sounded like something out of a Bible story. As it turns out, the whale was probably just as surprised as Michael. Experts think the whale mistook the bubbles from Michael's gear for a school of fish and scooped him up by accident. Humpback whales, huge as they are, don't eat humans. Humpback whales, up to 60 feet long and 40 tons, are gentle giants known for their peaceful nature. They live up to 90 years and migrate thousands of miles from the Caribbean to Norway. Recognizable by their black-gray backs, white bellies, and distinctive tail patterns, they often travel alone or in brief groups. Playful and curious, humpbacks breach and slap tails to communicate. Their unique songs, heard over long distances, are especially notable during mating season, earning them the title Sirens of the Sea. As baleen whales, humpbacks feed by swimming with their mouths open, taking in large amounts of water along with their prey like krill, fish, and crustaceans. They can eat about 3,000 pounds of food a day. Some engage in lunge feeding, rapidly moving through dense schools of fish, while others use a cooperative method known as bubble net feeding. In this technique, humpbacks create a net of bubbles to trap fish near the surface, making them easier to consume. So this was just a freak accident, a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Lobster diving isn't your everyday job. Michael himself had seen it all. He'd been dragged out to sea before and even found the body of a fellow diver once. But even after this crazy whale incident, Michael was ready to get back to diving as soon as he healed up. Which brings us to our next story, where this victim was robbed of the opportunity to heal or even resurface from the ocean. From the thrilling escape of Michael Packard from the grasp of a humpback whale, our story takes a darker turn to a tragic incident that occurred during a honeymoon dive. In October 2003, newlyweds Tina and Gabe Watson embarked on a honeymoon adventure to Australia, filled with anticipation and excitement. Their journey led them to a diving excursion on the historic shipwreck, the Yongala, a site known for its beauty, but also for its challenges. Tina, 26 years old, vibrant and full of life, had only recently married Gabe in a beautiful ceremony back in Birmingham, Alabama. They chose to explore the Yongala, an early 20th century passenger boat that now rested in the depths near the Great Barrier Reef. This dive, however, was not for the faint-hearted. The Yongala, lying between 30 and 16 meters deep, was a dive spot recommended for experienced divers due to the strong currents in the area. On the morning of October 22nd, Tina and Gabe Watson, newly married and on their honeymoon, set out for a dive at the SS Yongala shipwreck, a popular site near the Great Barrier Reef. The dive was a significant challenge, particularly for Tina, who was less experienced compared to Gabe, an advanced diver. Their plan for the dive was straightforward. They would descend along an anchor line, navigate across the upper section of the wreck, and then ascend using a second anchor line. However, shortly after they re-entered the water for this dive, something went terribly wrong, as only moments later Gabe, unexpectedly and alarmingly, surfaced without Tina. Panic ensued as he frantically called for assistance from the dive boat. His voice, filled with urgency and fear, pierced the calm ocean air, indicating something had gone dreadfully wrong beneath the waves. Responding swiftly to Gabe's calls for help, a crew member donned scuba gear and plunged into the depths, racing against time to locate Tina. The hope of a rescue motivated the crew members' quick and deliberate descent. However, upon reaching the ocean floor, a grim sight awaited. Tina was found motionless, lying on the seabed. The crew member quickly assessed the situation and realized the gravity of it. In a desperate attempt to save her life, the crew member, with Tina in tow, made a swift ascent to the surface. Once aboard the dive boat, a frenzied effort to resuscitate Tina commenced. The boat's deck transformed into an emergency response scene, with crew members and fellow divers joining in the resuscitation attempts. For 45 excruciating minutes they fought to revive Tina, performing CPR. The desire to bring her back motivated every move and every crucial second. But despite these heroic efforts, their attempts were in vain. Tina, whose underwater adventure had begun with excitement and joy, was pronounced dead, her life tragically cut short in the mysterious and unforgiving depths of the ocean. The circumstances surrounding Tina's disappearance and subsequent death raised immediate concerns. The initial dive plan, which should have been manageable for a diver of Tina's experience, turned into a tragic event. The exact sequence of events that led to Tina being alone and in distress on the ocean floor remains unclear. However, investigations revealed that Gabe's actions during the dive were puzzling. As the investigation unfolded, scrutiny intensified around her husband Gabe's actions and statements. Investigators found Gabe's recounting of the events perplexing and inconsistent, raising serious questions about his behavior as an experienced diver. Gabe Watson, who held certifications as an open-water advanced and rescue diver, was expected to possess considerable skill and composure underwater. His training should have equipped him to handle emergency situations, especially those involving a dive partner in distress. However, his reported actions during Tina's fatal dive seemed to contradict this level of expertise. During the investigation, Gabe's narrative of the incident varied each time he recounted it. Initially, he described an experience where Tina, who was less experienced in diving, struggled against a strong ocean current. He mentioned that she had difficulty managing her buoyancy control device, a critical piece of equipment for maintaining depth and stability underwater. According to Gabe, as Tina signaled her desire to ascend due to these difficulties, he attempted to assist her by suggesting she inflate her buoyancy device. However, when she apparently failed to do so, Gabe claimed he tried to help her manually. The situation escalated when Gabe recounted that Tina, in her panicked state, inadvertently knocked off his mask. At this pivotal moment, instead of maintaining physical contact with Tina or attempting an immediate rescue, Gabe chose to adjust his mask. When he looked back, he claimed Tina was sinking rapidly into the depths, out of his reach. His decision to surface for help, rather than attempt a direct rescue, was seen as a significant deviation from the standard rescue procedures expected of a diver with his training. Other divers on the expedition reported strong currents at the dive site, but they did not experience the level of difficulty Gabe described. Furthermore, the dive computer, an essential device that logs depth and time underwater, contradicted Gabe's account. The data from his dive computer indicated a more gradual ascent than would be expected in an emergency situation, suggesting he might have remained underwater longer than he initially claimed. Furthermore, Tina's diving equipment was examined and found to be functioning correctly, with no signs of malfunction that could have led to her drowning. Additionally, the autopsy revealed no pre-existing medical conditions that could have contributed to her demise. These findings raise doubts about Gabe's account of what happened and imply that Tina's death wasn't due to a malfunction or health issue. Gabe's behavior following the incident also raised suspicions. His requests to retrieve his dive computer from the police, his agitation when denied, and the variance in his recounting of the events to different individuals suggested a lack of transparency. In the end, the investigation painted a picture of a tragic dive where Gabe Watson's actions, as an experienced diver, did not align with the expected behavior in an underwater emergency, especially one involving a less experienced diving partner like Tina. This disconnect between Gabe's training and his actions during those critical moments became a focal point of the investigation, leading to prolonged legal proceedings and continued debate as different theories emerged about his motives, with speculations ranging from a calculated murder to a grievous accident. Central to these theories was the question of Gabe's motives and actions during the dive. In one prevailing theory, Gabe was suspected of deliberately turning off Tina's air supply and restraining her in a bear hug until she drowned. Witnesses who claimed to have seen Gabe holding Tina in an unusual manner underwater, and the discovery of Tina's body with her regulator still in her mouth and air in her tank, both supported this theory. The theory suggested that Gabe had planned the murder, possibly for financial gain, and chose the dive as the means to execute his plan. However, conflicting theories emerged, pointing to the possibility that Tina's death was an accident resulting from her inexperience and the challenging dive conditions. Tina was relatively new to diving, and the strong currents at the SS Yongala wreck made the dive particularly difficult. Some experts argued that panic and confusion underwater, especially in strong currents, could have led to a fatal accident, independent of Gabe's actions. The complexity of the case was reflected in the legal outcomes in both Australia and the United States. In Australia, Gabe Watson pleaded guilty to manslaughter on the grounds of failing to provide the necessary assistance to Tina as her dive partner. He was sentenced to 18 months in prison, a term that many, including Tina's family, considered lenient given the severity of the incident. Upon his return to the United States, Gabe faced additional charges. However, the case in the U.S. was mired in legal and evidential complexities. The prosecution faced challenges in presenting a cohesive narrative of premeditated murder, partly due to the absence of direct evidence linking Gabe to a deliberate act of killing. The varying accounts of Gabe's actions and the lack of concrete proof that he intentionally harmed Tina played a significant role in the inability to secure a murder conviction. The insurance aspect of the case added another layer of suspicion. It was alleged that Gabe had encouraged Tina to increase her life insurance coverage and named him as the sole beneficiary before the trip. However, this claim was mired in contradictions and uncertainties. Ultimately, it appeared that Gabe did not receive a significant financial payout from Tina's death, which further complicated the narrative of a financially motivated murder. Adding to the convoluted nature of the aftermath, Gabe was reportedly caught vandalizing Tina's gravesite, an act that was perceived as indicative of a disturbed state of mind. However, this incident was not directly linked to the legal proceedings regarding Tina's death. In conclusion, the investigation into Tina Watson's death revealed a web of theories, ranging from cold-blooded murder to a tragic accident. The lack of conclusive evidence and the complexities of human behavior under extreme conditions left many questions unanswered. Moving on to our next story, Nicholas Mevoli's passion for freediving led him to compete at Vertical Blue, the Wimbledon of freediving, held at Dean's Blue Hole in the Bahamas. This annual event attracts the world's top freedivers, who come to test their limits in the deepest known sinkhole on Earth, a daunting 656-foot deep underwater chasm. Nicholas Mevoli, born in 1981 in Florida, was a man of diverse talents and passions. He spent the majority of his adult life in Brooklyn, New York, where he carved out a career as a prop technician in the film and television industry. His work included notable productions such as Gossip Girl and Chappelle's Show, showcasing his skill and creativity behind the scenes. Beyond his professional life, Nicholas harbored aspirations of becoming a writer and an actor. He even starred in an independent film, Exist, evidencing his willingness to explore various facets of the entertainment world. Nicholas was not just a creative soul, he was also an athlete with a penchant for adrenaline-fueled activities. His adventurous spirit eventually led him to the world of freediving, a sport that demands both physical prowess and mental fortitude. Freediving, the practice of diving underwater on a single breath without the use of breathing apparatus, is as much a test of psychological strength as it is of physical endurance. In 2012, Nicholas began to pursue freediving competitively, and it quickly became clear that he was exceptionally talented. His rapid progression in the sport was remarkable. By 2013, he had already claimed victories at prominent competitions, including the Deja Blue contest in the Cayman Islands. His success continued as he placed third at the Caribbean Cup, and then went on to win a bronze medal at the World Championships in Greece. Nicholas's achievements in freediving were not just about winning medals, he was breaking boundaries in the sport. He was the first American to dive past 100 meters, 328 feet, in the constant weight with fins category, a significant milestone in the world of competitive freediving. This achievement underscored his extraordinary ability to push the limits of human potential underwater. His journey in freediving led him to the vertical blue competition at Dean's Blue Hole in the Bahamas, a location revered in the freediving community. Dean's Blue Hole is the deepest known sinkhole on Earth, with a depth of 200 meters, 656 feet. Its unique geographical features make it an ideal, though challenging spot for freediving competitions. It was here, at this renowned venue, that Nicholas would attempt to further his legacy in the sport. On the day of his fateful dive, Nicholas was attempting to set a new record in the constant weight without fins category. His goal was to reach a depth of 72 meters, 236.2 feet, in a single breath, a remarkable feat considering the average depth of a swimming pool is only about 10 feet. Before the dive, Nicholas lay on his back in the water, using relaxation techniques to slow his heart rate and metabolism, conserving oxygen for the demanding task ahead. At 12:25 p.m., Nicholas submerged, beginning his descent into the depths. As he dove, his progress was monitored and announced to the anxious crowd of spectators, many of them fellow competitors. Unlike scuba divers, freedivers don't need to decompress during ascent because they take their breath at the surface. However, freediving comes with its own set of physiological challenges and risks. On the day of the incident, Nicholas was aiming to set a new record in the constant weight without fins category by reaching a depth of 72 meters, 236 feet, in a single breath. As he began his dive, Nicholas smoothly descended through the water, passing the 15, 30, 45, and 60 meter marks without any apparent difficulty. This progression was typical for a diver of his caliber, indicating his comfort and experience at such depths. However, at around 68 meters, just shy of his target depth, Nicholas momentarily paused. This hesitation was unusual and signaled a potential problem. It was a critical depth, where the pressure is intense and the body undergoes significant physiological changes. Despite this moment of uncertainty, Nicholas decided to continue his descent, reaching the goal of 72 meters. This decision to push forward, despite the earlier hesitation, significantly increased the difficulty and danger of his ascent. The deeper a freediver goes, the more challenging it becomes to return to the surface due to the increasing water pressure and the body's decreasing oxygen reserves. After reaching the target depth, Nicholas began his ascent. The total time he spent underwater was 3 minutes and 38 seconds, a substantial duration for a breath-hold dive, especially considering the added exertion of swimming without fins. Upon reaching the surface, Nicholas was visibly in distress. While he attempted to signal that he was okay, a requirement to validate the dive, he struggled to speak. Almost immediately after trying to verbalize his condition, he lost consciousness. This rapid deterioration suggested a severe problem, likely related to his breathing or circulatory system. Rescue divers, who are always on standby during such competitions, reacted swiftly. They pulled Nicholas from the water and commenced emergency medical procedures. The situation quickly got out of hand on the dock, where it became clear that Nicholas had serious pulmonary problems from the blood coming from his mouth. This symptom suggested a serious injury to his lungs, possibly a pulmonary edema, where fluid accumulates in the lungs, hindering the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Despite the rescue team's best efforts, which included CPR and multiple adrenaline injections, Nicholas's condition worsened rapidly. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he was transported to a nearby hospital. However, despite all efforts to save him, Nicholas was pronounced dead at 1:44 p.m. The cause of death was determined to be severe pulmonary edema, a condition that can occur in freedivers due to the extreme pressures experienced at depth and the body's response to those conditions. The tragedy of Nicholas's death highlighted the extreme risks of freediving. At great depths, the body undergoes intense physical strain. Fluid redistribution can lead to pulmonary edema, where blood and fluid accumulate in the lungs, impairing breathing and potentially leading to fatal hypoxia. Nicholas's death was a somber reminder of the fine line between human ambition and the unforgiving nature of the deep sea. His passing marked the first athlete fatality in the 21-year history of Vertical Blue, a tragic end to a promising career in one of the world's most challenging sports. In these tales, the ocean reveals its awe and mystery, reminding us of the delicate balance between human adventure and nature's powerful forces.